Hello there and welcome back to another review. So yes, it's another Sammo Hung movie review. They just keep on coming, don't they? But today's a real fun movie that I've got to talk about. I'm going to be looking at Sammo's super fun and super light-hearted Bruce Lee tribute and homage, and that is Enter the Fat Dragon, made in 1978. And I believe this was Sammo's, was it his second film as director? It's definitely, I think it was his second, following on from Iron Fisted Monk. Please correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure in the director's chair this was his second time. Sammo in this playing a Bruce Lee obsessed kung fu nut, and the plot is very similar. It sort of follows Way of the Dragon in terms of sort of the narrative and the plot, with a guy from the country coming to help out a family restaurant. Now, what is interesting with this movie is that, it's a modern day film. Now, in terms of Hong Kong movies, that was not really the thing to do at this time. You're talking like 78 here, 77, 78. I mean, this was the Kung Fu heyday. This was when everybody was making sort of traditional sort of martial arts movies. So it was quite a bold move for Sammo to set this sort of, in the modern day setting. I think he was taking a bit of a gamble here with this one. To this day, many have said Sammo does the best Bruce Lee impression, which we saw in Skinny Tiger Fatty Dragon. We saw it a little bit in Millionaires Express, but no other film shows it off more than Enter the Fat Dragon. I think Sammo's Bruce Lee impression is it's second to none. I think he's up there with some of the best, because he gets the mannerisms, he's got the right facial expressions, he just narrows Bruce Lee down to a T. Now, this is also more of a comedy than what you would call a kung fu movie, and the first time I saw it back in the day, I absolutely loved it. I still have fondness for it now. It's definitely a Sammo that's definitely worth checking out. A friend of mine was like, have you seen Enter the Fat Dragon? And I was like, never heard of it. And he was like, yeah, it's Sammo doing like Bruce Lee fights and impressions all the way through. And I was like, yep, I've got to see that one. I've got to see what this is about. So I had to check it out. And whilst it's not a Sammo sort of you wouldn't put it up there with maybe necessarily within, like, if you was doing a list, it probably may not hit within the top three, at least for me personally. But it comes damn close, to being like a Sammo classic. I'm talking like in terms of movies like The Prodigal Son. As you know, I can't sing that that movie's praise enough, but it's almost a classic, Enter the Fat Dragon, but not quite. But it's still thoroughly enjoyable nonetheless. There is loads to be enjoyed here. Many have said this is Sammo's funniest movie, and like I mentioned, it is definitely up there. You have to remember too, this was still a very early Sammo Hung vehicle with him in the director's chair, so still figuring things out, but it's a fantastic effort from Sammo, a super funny film and a great tribute to Bruce Lee in its own right. I've always felt personally that people always respect Sammo as sort of a Bruce Lee impersonator. I think solely for the fact he did work with the guy, he did work with the little dragon. So I think Sammo, the fact he did work with him, he was in Enter the Dragon, but I think a lot of people sort of let Sammo off because it's like, well, you did work with him, you did know him in some regard. So, I think Sammo, I think more than any other, is sort of in terms of his Bruce Lee impression, it's really good. He does narrow, he gets it down to a T. So to say, work with Bruce, and he fought him on camera, and I will get round to reviewing the Donnie Yen remake of this movie, but that's, as I say, just so many movies to get through, so many movies to come. So it's the thing that lets with this movie, the thing that lets it down is it's just a tad uneven in places. It's a little disjointed here and there. It's not like, it's really, it's a thoroughly enjoyable movie, but it is a little bit uneven in terms of the pacing and things like that. And the fight scenes, though, whilst still pretty awesome, sort of a far cry from sort of Sammo's best work, but they're still fantastic fights nonetheless in their own right. You get a range of stars in this movie as well, from Fung, Hak-On, Yun Bu's in this, Leung Ka-yan, Lee Hoi-sang, who I will say is playing a black guy in this, which you could say maybe is in pretty bad taste. I think he's just trying to spoof Jim Kelly. I think that's what they were trying to do. Doesn't quite work. But that aside, this was 1978. This is a fantastic comedy from Sammo, a tribute to Bruce Lee, as well as a super entertaining, light-hearted movie in its own right. And when you look at the difference between this and like Iron Fisted Monk that Sammo directed previously, the difference in tone and like the whole genre and what the film's about is mind-blowing. Because Iron Fisted Monk is sort of, Sammo by and large sort of plays it safe. He doesn't take many risks in Iron Fisted Monk. There's not even that really amazing fights in Iron Fisted Monk. But I always viewed Iron Fisted Monk as sort of a warm-up for Sammo. That was him sort of experimenting, like just seeing what the director's chair feels like, and then, right, now I can start to branch out and go a bit crazy with what I want to do. Because he's done Enter the Fat Dragon, done this movie. Then I think after this it was straight into Warriors 2. I could be wrong. But, the leap from Iron Fisted Monk to Warriors 2 is huge. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So the film opens with Sammo feeding some pigs, which he actually does hit and kick when he's doing his Bruce Lee impression. He even crowd surfs over these pigs at one point too, for good measure, and he's sent to go and help his uncle on his new food stall. We see his character Leung even on like a rowing boat, like sort of much exactly the same as Bruce Lee, John Saxon, etc. were doing, with sort of riding at the beginning of Enter the Dragon. We get an open sort of martial arts demonstration where Sammo shows off his Bruce Lee moves, and he's, like I said, he's just perfect when he does the impression. He's just got the mannerisms, he's got the looks. We get the war cries as well. Sammo, just as I say, he's just perfect with his Bruce Lee impersonation. We get all the mannerisms, let's say the punches, the kicks punches and kicks done perfectly by Sammo. And what is interesting too with this film, it never comes across like Sammo is sort of insulting Bruce Lee or taking the mickey out of Bruce Lee. It never ever comes across like that, which it very easily could have done. And I think by and large, that's why Into the Fat Dragon should be appreciated, because not only is it a testament to Sammo and sort of his flair for comedy, but it is actually a nice little tribute to Bruce Lee as well. So I think if it was anybody else doing this, it might have come across they were sort of being a bit insulting to Bruce Lee. But Sammo just managed, he really does pull it off amazingly well, where it does come across like a tribute, homage, that kind of thing. So he shows off his stick skills in this opening demonstration. Of course, we have Yuen Bu as one of the guys he fights, and he crops up later in the movie. Yuen Bu doesn't have sort of a role as such in the movie, but he is an extra, nonetheless. So he goes to he even does Bruce Lee's famous like chest, neck stomp that he does, but turns out he's dreaming and his foot goes right through the boat that he's on, which I still find quite funny. So as I say, the whole film is basically Way of the Dragon in terms of plot. He starts working at the restaurant. I love when he sees these two robbers whilst out delivering an order. His face just turns into that classic Bruce Lee look. As I say, there's loads of comedy throughout. Sammo trying to lure in some customers saying, want to get rich, and the police thinking it's a gambling den. He buys some Bruce Lee glasses at one point, and Sammo's like to the guy, he says, I want to look like him. Do I look like him? And the guy's looking at this photo of a pig. Which, again, it's just Sammo just injecting all that comedy in there. And Sammo, by and large, the comedy does work in this movie, but it's not, when you watch this movie, don't go in thinking it's a martial arts movie. Go into it, it's a comedy, and you'll enjoy it a lot more. So, what Sammo does, it's okay if you have to, if you have next to no plot and just want to kill time, but you have to make sure every scene is sort of entertaining with comedy, and when you do that, and I would say 90% of Enter the Fat Dragon is entertaining. Enter the Fat Dragon is in terms of the comedy, most of it does work. As I say, it just slips a little here and there, and just like I mentioned, just slightly uneven in places. So we have a group of thugs as always come in involving Yuen Bu, and I think we have Meng Hoi is here as well. I think Meng Hoi is there, who likes to refuse to pay for their food. This is when Yuen Bu pulls out the nunchucks, and we get Sammo getting them off him and using them absolutely amazingly, as you would expect, to beat these people up. So Fung Hak-On, as always, plays a villain and is after sort of recruiting the shop owner's son, Chiao, I think his name, and he's sort of like a painter, and they want him to help them with sort of their forgeries. That's the whole their whole ploy. I say Fung Hak-On is always a baddie, isn't he? I mean, if it's Shaw Brothers, it's Wang Lun Wei. If it's like Golden Harvest movie or a Jackie Chan or a Sammo Hung, more often than not, it's going to be Fung Hak-On. The thugs from earlier come back and they sort of trash the joint, and now Sammo's sort of out of work and gets a job at another restaurant as like a dishwasher. And love how you have these like random French customers who for no reason just start slagging off, bad mouthing Chinese kung fu. It's always the same, isn't it? If there's foreigners in any kung fu movie, all they're interested in is just bad mouthing Chinese kung fu. That is a complete, it's such a stereotype. It's something that always happens. Sammo takes them outside, beats them, and nothing really comes of this scene. It's just like a random encounter. You think there's going to be a massive fight with these two dudes. Nothing happens at all. So I love how when they go outside, there is a big crowd of people there already for some reason. So Ko is now like working as a cab driver, and his cab gets vandalised by Fung Hak-On and his buddy. Even goes so far as to rip the guy's door off. Sammo goes back to teach them a lesson. Of course, ends up keying the wrong car. But again, it's a really funny scene when you watch it. The fact he is keying the wrong car and he's really trying to mess this car up to get sort of payback for his buddy. It is funny because he doesn't just key it. He goes complete, he goes to town on it. He covers it with paint. He takes a hammer to it. And of course the car belongs to like his new boss's chairman, naturally. No idea where he got this big bucket of red paint from either, but it is a funny scene, and I could only imagine it would have been very satisfying to smash a car up like Sammo does in this movie. Worth noting as well, we have Roy Chiao. Forgot to mention Roy Chiao is in this movie. If you're not sure who Roy Chiao is, he was in Bloodsport. He's like the abbot in Enter the Dragon. And of course in this he plays the crime boss. Chiao is working with Bei, who is like this multi-millionaire who has like 3 bodyguards, as I mentioned, one being Lee Hoi-sang doing a complete Jim Kelly rip-off, which yes can be argued is a bit in bad taste. We have Leung Ka-yan here as a kung fu expert and a Western kickboxer. And I'm not, and the Western kickboxer, I'm not sure who he is. There's Leung Ka-yan, there's Lee Hoi-sang, and there's this Western kickboxer. If any of you do know who this guy is, please let me know. He's probably been in other movies, but I for the life of me, I have no idea what the guy's name is, the Caucasian kickboxer. So Sammo and his new workforce are doing the catering for a party hosted by Chiao, and we get this surreal plot that this rich professor used to want to date and have a crush on this girl that Sammo knows. We get a whole even comedic flashback of her turning him down ever since they were kids. Then we have like him daydreaming and tripping her over and sort of throwing her into a swimming pool. And I say it's a really bizarre, surreal sort of subplot that we have going on. So yeah, the film does go into some strange, weird territory. Also at this point, like this party, Sammo is now absolutely wasted, right? Sammo is completely and utterly hammered. He does some like tiger and snake form on Fung Hak-On and his buddy, beats everyone up, but the bodyguards get him. So this professor guy says to Roy Chiao, I'll help you get rid of your fakes if you get me the girl, because this guy's been like obsessed with her since he was about like 7 or 8 or something like that. Then we probably get the funniest scene in the movie where Chiao bumps into sort of Chan, who is working on a new movie with a Bruce Lee type action star, and they need extras, to which Sammo agrees to go along. And this scene here, it's just pure fun. It really is pure fun. I think somebody's uploaded it to YouTube, but when he's taken on the Bruce Lee impersonator, it's nothing, it doesn't go on too long, but it's still a fun scene nonetheless, because like Sammo's like, he doesn't look like Bruce Lee. I'm a better guy than, I'm a better impersonator than what he is. Sammo not impressed with the guy. I think he's nothing like Bruce Lee. They have a great fight scene, with one Bruce Lee impersonator versus another. And also I love when he takes on the film crew. You have like a disco remix version of like the Way of the Dragon theme. If any of you out there remember the Way of the Dragon theme, but they have like a disco remix of it, and it just plays out really well. Just so much fun, and like I say, probably my favourite scene of the movie. So Sammo's uncle reopens his food stall. Fong sort of drugs the girl and says that she must have rabies and dries off with her. Then we have another super funny scene where Cal gets a taxi to the hideout and thinking Sammo's in the car in this cab. He gets in the cab and he drives off, gets to drive the right go, and he thinks Sammo's in the back because he hears the door go, but Sammo's not in the back. So the whole while Sammo's just running after this cab all the way there. Again, very silly humour, but it does work. The fact Sammo, when they get there, Sammo's absolutely exhausted. So I'd say it's a simple joke, but it does work. The professor, whilst trying to drug the girl, ends up drugging himself, basically. So you know the setup. It's a warehouse. Sammo has to take on the villains. Now, the end fight with this movie is interesting. While still very good, and Sammo does get a lot of mileage out of it, it's very entertaining. It's not what you would call, I would think, a classic Sammo fight. I think Sammo was sort of still figuring stuff out at this point in terms of like his choreography and things like that. It didn't take him long, obviously, to get going, but I think Enter the Fat Dragon, the end fight is good. But I think it's a bit underwhelming. It's not what you'd say if you were saying, right, list your top 5 Sammo Hung fights. I don't think it would be in there because it's okay. It's serviceable. It's more than okay. But again, it's like I mentioned, it's not what you. It's still, there's some great choreography done in that Bruce Lee style. But well, he does. I say that there's some good choreography in the Bruce Lee style. Well, until he fights Leung Yan anyway. He has to fight Lee Ho-sang first, complete with his afro. And I know I mentioned Jim Kelly, but with his outfit, it reminds me a lot of sort of Tiger as well from Tekken 3. That's just I don't know if any of you remember Tiger. We get a whole Way of the Dragon sort of Chuck Norris rip-off with the chest hair gag. Then he takes on the kickboxer, which when I was younger, this was my favourite fight out of the 3. Music gets a bit jazzy here, and again, still very much rooted in that Way of the Dragon territory and very much a Chuck and Bruce homage. Worth mentioning a huge, massive product placement here for Marlboro cigarettes. Because as always, they're in a warehouse and there's just like boxes and boxes of cigarettes behind them. So yeah, good product placement. Then he has to take on Leung Yan, as you know, Beardy. He would work with him loads of times. Knockabout, Victim, loads of films. Warriors 2. And like this fight, and this is where Sammo does mix it up a bit here, as he drops the Bruce Lee style completely. Like the Bruce Lee style goes completely out the window at this point, and the two, what can only be described as sort of a classic kung fu fight. Like I said, the Bruce Lee style gets dropped, and it turns into just sort of a one-on-one classic kung fu bout. And it is a great one, and I love how suddenly some crates fall open and Sammo gets a metal ring and Leung Yan gets a bow staff. And it's a great showcase between the two. It's just slightly underwhelming, but it's still a great fight. And what I love about the ending of the movie is you get 3 fights, and Sammo brings it on home with a great sort of kung fu fight to end it off. The fact he has to take on 3 villains, they're all different in their style and their technique. And Sammo keeps the Bruce Lee style, then he changes it. But you do get your value for money at the end. Like they say, it's not just a one-on-one fight. He's got to take on the main dude, and that's it. You get 3 different fights. Not only that, but one after the other as well. So there's, you do get bang for your buck there. So it's a great ending to the movie, I feel, and the choreography, like I mentioned, was still amazing. You can't say Sammo's best, but then this isn't that type of film, as I mentioned. It's more of a comedy than an action film, and the whole film does work. And like I say, at the time, most people were doing sort of traditional kung fu movies. They were sort of doing, just as you would expect, sort of the Snake and Eagle Shadows and movies like that. So this, what I mentioned, this was a risk for Sammo. He took a chance, and I think overall, by and large, the whole film paid off. I think it worked. I think it's a great movie. I think you can understand why sort of Donnie Yen, which I would say I will review soon, but why I did remake it, because it's just a lot of fun. It really is. It's one of Sammo's funnest films. I think I've said it before, but I think Millionaire's Express is probably his funniest in terms of just some of the gags used and just everybody being on fine comedic form. But Enter the Fat Dragon is it's just a fun good movie. It's one of the movies, like I mentioned, don't just go into it thinking, oh, it's going to be loads and loads of fights. It's more a comedy film. So Leung at the end decides to go back to the country, and ends with him sort of diving in the ocean thinking someone has jumped in, and the end joke is basically Sammo gets wet. That's the end joke. But I remember watching this for the first time and loving every minute of it. And if you are a Bruce Lee fan, a Sammo fan, a Kung Fu fan, then you're going to have the time of your life with this movie. And just make sure to go and check it out for Sammo's just amazing, funny tribute, homage to the little dragon that is Bruce Lee. So if you have seen Enter the Fat Dragon, let me know what you think. If it's one of your favourites, if it's one of your favourite Sammos, and it's just really worth checking out. And Sammo's, as I say, Sammo's Bruce Lee impression, second to none. It just still makes me laugh even to this day. So thank you very much indeed for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you again soon.
Don't concentrate on the finger, or you will miss all that heavenly glory.